Tricare Select and Tricare Prime are the two different types of insurances military related for active duty service members, family members specifically, that are eligible. If there are more, I'm not aware of them, because the reality is, despite having been an active duty in the military myself, and despite having been part of the military community for basically most of my life now, there is a total lack of just education for the benefit of military service members or families pertaining to the insurance options, to say the very least. And I think it's just because they just don't care to educate anyone for the benefit of service members and their families, let's be honest here. Now, there is a misconception to include among, like, someone I just spoke to who's marrying into this military situation recently, that the healthcare is, quote, free. That's false. There are countless ways that they, meaning the military healthcare system and Tricare, aka Humana Military, will find ways to bill eligible people for, you name it, healthcare service. Fortunately, I have not utilized the healthcare system that much. Comparatively speaking, I haven't needed to, thankfully. However, from 2019 approximately to 2022 approximately, I was unable to use the military, Tricare, Humana Military, whatever you want to call it, system at all, in any way, shape, or form, because of a lack of access to care. I've seen online around about that 2020, there's some major changes to Tricare, sound like they're undesirable. I'm guessing from the way people are talking about it. I'm not familiar. Again, wasn't even using the healthcare during that time, unable to access it. What I've noticed, though, is a trend is there seems to be an effort to starve out people on Tricare Prime, which would be the better option potentially as far as less out-of-pocket cost, because by not including as many people in the network to utilize, not including as many primary care managers, primary health for preventive health care to utilize, the Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the military treatment facilities on and off post, not allowing, family members access to those because of whatever the reason, maybe being booked up, and basically forcing as many of these family members to be placed in a situation where they'd be opting for Tricare Select. And what happens is basically the burden of healthcare is shifted financially really to the insured. And so you could be at the exact same clinic that you would be at on Tricare Prime, but now you're required to pay all this money for it that you wouldn't have had to pay before. And it's to the point where it's so severe, the lack of access for even preventative health care. I've noticed in North Carolina that it is a situation where I know for Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and surrounding areas, extending out, we're talking 60 miles probably, that Tricare Select seems to be the only viable option for certain military family members, active duty military families in certain situations. And I would say probably in many situations, potentially. And so it just, starting 2018, there was a major scale back in needed healthcare coverage, as well as other types of future compensation for service members that serve the longest period of time in the military and their families. And, there are some benefits that have been extended, specifically like paternity leave for fathers of newborns. However, there's a consistent concerted effort to really cut needed healthcare, compensation, whatever necessities of life, but there's never, of course, any interest in cutting funding for Department of Defense contractors, of course. And there's just so much money circulating that never is utilized for the benefit of service members and their families at all. And, my experience of Tricare Humana Military has been less than favorable overall through the many years I've had to deal with them whenever I have to call in. I will say it's improved, comparatively speaking, but even recently I was given false information saying that, a specific clinic was in the network when in fact it wasn't in any way, shape, or form working with that insurance at all. I'd later find out after wasting my time researching it. I'm really excited about Amazon Medical One, a subsidiary of Amazon. I have my own criticisms of Amazon, but I will just say I'm beyond excited about the innovation that looks like they're trying to make in the healthcare industry, and I sincerely hope, I'm planning on trying it myself. And if all things stay the same with my own situation, I'm planning on switching to Tricare Select, really because there's no other viable option. Tricare Prime, my experience is I'm going to spend more time trying to get what I need than actually getting it. And the inefficiencies and the issues I'm beginning to observe in Department of Defense healthcare is a lot of the similar things I've seen at Veterans Health Administration. And the two systems that they have in common are the civil service system, which needs to be eliminated for the civilian workers. It's a horrible waste of tax money. It's a bad dysfunctional system. It needs to go. The civil service system. And then the second thing is that Veterans Health Administration is definitely worse than Department of Defense healthcare, regardless of how you slice it, because Veterans Health Administration is what I call a closed system, so you can never get out of the system. And the community care option has continued to become more and more sparse. I looked up on va.gov just the other day and found out that they basically are having hardly any people available for family medicine, primary care whatsoever. And so in the like mini mile radius of like, we're talking upwards of probably 60 miles. And so you're just stuck there at Veterans Health Administration, and they don't want to let people out because it's all about money. So they get the, hundreds of billions of dollars, and they just want to just absorb it all into themselves and suck up all the money. And Veterans Health Administration is a place where, veterans will languish basically and suffer long, painful death. I mean, that's reality. That's Veterans Health Administration for you. People work there largely don't care about anyone in the military community, can't be bothered. And then Department of Defense healthcare is better than Veterans Health Administration. However, it's still not an ideal situation much of the time. But I will say, I know that my experiences have been far more favorable, I feel like, especially in recent history, than what I'm even hearing about on TikTok. Just today, I was listening to experiences from military spouses over the last year or less, and I can definitely say that my experiences were not as horrendous as what they were describing their experiences were. So I guess there's something to be said for that. But yeah, I think the main takeaways is that Department of Defense, Veterans Health Administration, healthcare systems are very inefficient, very problematic. And that there is a huge effort, concerted effort to have Veterans Health Administration control and the veterans and prevent them from getting the health care that they would choose to have on their own outside the system and keep it closed system and keep all the money. And Department of Defense, there's an effort to move through starving out of healthcare access Tricare Prime beneficiaries to Tricare Select so that they now have to pay for even more healthcare out of pocket. And this is a big deal because active duty service members aren't making that much money, most of them to begin with. When I was in the military on active duty, I was making poverty wages, and it was so bad, I was looking for a second job to subsidize being in the military on active duty. No, I don't miss being in the military, FYI. Glad that's over.